Every skater knows the final pose. The moment after the last spin, the last step, the last breath. It's not just an ending, it's a declaration. A quiet, powerful "I showed up." That's where I am now, not at the end of my story, but at the edge of a new beginning. A place where reflection meets readiness. A place where I begin to archive the journey, not to close the book, but to preserve the pages. I've started collecting the moments, the posts that carried prayers, the captions that held courage, the messages that mirrored my own healing. I've begun organizing my words not just for content, but for continuity, for the woman who will read them years from now and whisper, "I needed this." For my children, who will one day ask, "How did you keep going?" For myself, when I forget how far I've come, because memory is ministry, and archiving is honoring. I've started mapping out my next steps, not with pressure, but with peace. I'm dreaming of a devotional one that blends emotional literacy with spiritual legacy. I'm outlining a mentorship guide, one that teaches women how to rise with grace and ripple with purpose. I'm sketching out a creative curriculum, one that helps mothers, writers, and cycle breakers build businesses that feel like home. And through it all, I'm listening to the still, small voice, to the rhythm of grace, to the whispers of wisdom that remind me this is holy work, not because it's perfect, but because it's poured, not because it's polished, but because it's prophetic, not because it's viral, but because it's valuable. I've started praying differently, not just for breakthrough, but for blueprint, not just for impact, but for intimacy, not just for reach, but for roots, because I want this legacy to last, not just in algorithms, but in atmospheres. Not just in metrics, but in memories. Not just in posts, but in people. I've started watching my children more closely, not just for signs of growth, but for echoes of grace. In the way they comfort each other, in the way they speak life into their friends, in the way they ask questions that carry depth. They are becoming the anthem, the living, breathing proof that quiet fights create loud legacies. And I weep, not because I'm tired, but because I'm grateful. Grateful for the falls, for the fog, for the fire, grateful for the rank, for the routine, for the rise. Grateful for the grace that carried me when grit wasn't enough. I've started writing my anthem, not just in words, but in ways. In the way I mentor, in the way I mother, in the way I move through the world with softness and strength. Because this is the final pose, not of the story but of the season. A sacred pause, a whispered thank you, a deep breath before the next jump, and I will keep skating into the unknown with archived wisdom, with anchored faith, with an anthem that sings of grace, grit, and God. Because this is what I was made for, to rise, to reflect. To ripple, to archive the fight. To sing the legacy, to skate the story faithfully, fiercely, and forever.